in the room that haven't heard of KIPLN. It stands for the Knowledge into Practice Learning Network. So we're sort of an online international community that has people that are dedicated to turning knowledge into practice. And basically our goals are just to sort of learn from each other, connect from others around the world, and identify collaborative opportunities. So the goal of this Insight series is to sort of learn from related disciplines, from knowledge into practice. You know, it pulls from a number of different areas, including adult education, usability, UX, things like data visualization. And so we're going to have experts come in from sort of each of these related disciplines to tell us what can knowledge into practice or knowledge mobilization, knowledge translation, whatever you want to call it, what can we learn from each of these disciplines? So some ways to connect with us if you're in the virtual world is to follow us on the KIPLN network, basically, that's our Twitter handle. And you can also visit our website, and there you can sign up for the listserv so you get emails about these sort of things. And so today's webinar is hosted by Gambling Research Exchange Ontario, so I'd like to thank them for providing the resources to sort of put this online and stream it to you all. And so during the webinar, if you have any questions or there's something wrong, you can't hear me, for example, there's a text box that you can type into, so just let us know any questions you might have for the speaker, and we'll have some time at the end to go through those. And you can also tweet at us and use hashtag KIPLN to sort of help us tag and keep track of comments. Okay, so without further ado, today's speaker is Chrissy Sztainert. She's an educator with 7 years of experience teaching at the high school level. During this time, she created and taught courses in nearly every subject at the junior and senior levels, and has successfully applied effective learning strategies in a variety of subjects, environments, and with a variety of audiences. She's recently completed a certificate in adult education and aims to use her insights learned from the transition into a training role in the private sector. So now I'll hand over the microphone.
Hi everyone, like Travis said, I'm Chrissy Sztainert, and I'm going to be talking to you about what you can learn from adult ed practices to make your life easier as a knowledge mobilization person. Go through it. Okay, so who I am, Travis already said this. I have a bachelor of education from the University. I've taught absolutely everything except for advanced math and chem and stuff like that, but I have taught a lot of courses school, and I've done my certificate in adult education, and that's going to be where I'm drawing a lot of the information from here. I moved recently down to Guelph with my husband, and I'm working on transitioning into private sector teaching, and right now I do work for Shopify, so that's where I am professionally. Oh, already too fast. Okay, so presentation overview today. So what we are going to do is all of this list of stuff. So we're going to look at the characteristics of an adult learner, who they are, and apply those characteristics to your KT practice. We're going to identify how adults learn and how this can positively inform your KT practices. We're going to discuss learning objectives. What are they? Why are they important for KT? What's the criteria for creating good learning objectives? How you can do this, and using a framework of knowledge called Bloom's Taxonomy to do that. I'm going to explain all of that stuff. The goal of this presentation is to give you an understanding of how adults learn and how you can create clear learning objectives for your KT practices or KM practices to make your plans more effective and to reach a bigger variety of audiences, that sort of stuff. Okay. So who is the adult learner? The adult learner is all of these things. So someone who is internally motivated and self-directed. We're busy adults in our lives. If we're going to spend our time learning something, there's going to be a goal. There's going to be something that we can gain from that. So we're motivated and self-directed. We're goal-oriented. To solve a problem in my field is often training related. So like, I want to get better at my job. I need to get these skills. I'm going to take this course. They're also interested in things that are relevant to them. You might not be interested in knowing how the weather cycle works, for example, but you might be interested in how different practices in adult education can make your life easier as parents. They're very practical with their learning, and they bring life experiences and knowledge to their learning experiences. This is a huge difference between adults and youth. Adults have world experience. You've been working for years. You've seen the world. You have different experiences that you can draw on that also establish your values, your beliefs, and your opinions, but you bring those into what you're going to learn. That's your starting point, and that's something that's really important to take into consideration when you are working on KT plans, because you are trying to teach somebody, and this is the most important. The established values, beliefs, and opinions with the wealth of experience is huge. It's old, so that's nice. But it can be something that can be really good, or it can also be a barrier that stops people from learning. So it's something to really consider. When you're thinking about your target audience for your KT, what are their values? What are their beliefs? What are their experiences? How can you use that to help them change, or how can that become a barrier in effectively connecting with them? And taking that into consideration can go a long way with giving you an effective plan, if that makes sense. Adult learners also have pride, and they value respect and being respected. We are no longer kindergartners who need help tying our shoes, and sometimes it's hard to ask for help or admit that you don't know something, especially if you're in a job, if you're in a role where you are seen as somebody who is really important, very educated. So to say that you might not know something could be something that hurts your pride, and that you could feel like you won't get that respect. So it's really important to take that into consideration, and when you're engaging with your target audience or creating learning experiences, making sure that you're not attacking somebody's pride, whether it's intentional or not intentional, can go a long way in helping be effective. Good so far? All right. So, importance to KT. Adult education is most effective when there is a transference of learning into the real world. Most people are going to learn for skills, and if they can apply that to the real world, then they've actually learned something. So we want to see that transference, and we want to focus on that transference. So in order to do this, adult learners must be able to associate the concept being learned with what they already know, how it fits into their current framework of knowledge, and then you can build change from there, build skills from there. Meet them where they're at, and then open up the door. Okay? When you're thinking about this KT, think about who is your target audience. Who are you trying to reach? Okay? What does their framework of existing knowledge look like? How can you connect to what they already know, value, or believe, and work from there? How are you going to hook your target audience and get them to think about the topic at hand and encourage them to engage with the topic? Engagement is key for transference. If somebody's going to be a passive learner, they're not going to actually apply those skills or that knowledge to their real world, so that engagement is really, really important. Okay? An example. Here we go. I'm not a KT person, so bear with me on this. I'm going to talk about smokers. We see a lot of education around smoking, how bad it is for you, how you shouldn't smoke, all that sort of stuff. And there's one way that you could engage with that is to talk about like the shock and awe and the gore of it. Show the black lung, show people dying, show scary, scary things that are happening. And that can draw some people in, people who are afraid of those things happening. But most smokers, to be completely honest, do it because they like it. And they're not quitting because there is some benefit to it. Maybe it helps them feel calm in stressful situations. Maybe they like the routine of having a cigarette and a coffee in the morning. I don't know. And maybe that's the reason why they're not quitting. So you could engage through shock and awe, or you could try and hook them by having, I don't know, an ad with somebody talking about how great it is to smoke and how much they like it. And then people will start engaging with that, and then you can spin that into being more health conscious. Well, if you like this, if it's a stress reliever, then maybe what about exercise as a stress relief? Or maybe what about meditation or something like that? So having a starting point where you're connecting with the feelings of your target audience can be an effective way to get them to engage in the first place and think about how to affect their lives. And then you can go from there. Next thing, reluctant learner. We all have them. I'm sure people have walked into rooms having to do some sort of presentation full of really important people who know what they're talking, and the first thing you're thinking is, why are they even going to listen to me? Who am I? I'm not a professional in that field. Why are they going to focus on me? And they could be sitting there being like, especially if the training was mandated by their employer, why the heck do I have to be here? What am I going to learn? I know how to do my job well. How is this going to affect me? So you can have unmotivated or reluctant learners. That's the thing. And the audience strategic planners can also include these people and who don't easily see that relevance and who don't easily engage with that. So what do you do about that? First thing, humor in a warm learning environment, right? Like making a joke, cracking a joke, showing that you're just here to like present some information and maybe have some fun and maybe you'll learn something. It's going to be a lot easier to get your message across than if you come in and be like, all right, open up your books, get your pencils out, shut those laptops, let's go, dictatorship type learning. So humor in a warm learning environment is huge. The second thing is to really clarify the purpose of learning, okay? Focus on how the learner's current experience, skill set, life experience, job role is important, it's valuable, and they're already good at their job, but the purpose of this learning is to make tweaks to make your life easier, to make you more successful, to make your career better, leveling up as opposed to saying, hey, you're not doing good enough, moving down. And that perspective change can go a long way. And thinking back to our adult learners who are prideful and value respect, clarifying these purposes allows for that. You're respecting who they are, you're respecting their experiences, and then you're also helping them. And that can really help bring reluctant learners in. Humility and openness, I'm going to tell you right now, don't know much about KT, but you guys do, and you guys can sit in the back of your brain while I'm talking here and think, okay, this is how I can apply this, or this isn't really that important to me. And if you have questions, please ask them, one, and two, let's talk about them because I can learn from you, you can learn from me, everybody wins in that situation, right? There's an openness there. And then enhance the reasons for learning, like explain why, like if you're doing a very specific topic, explain why this could be good for them, like lay it out as clear as possible, and then people will be like, oh yeah, okay, I can sit here for an hour and listen to this, maybe I'll come up with something. Don't quite believe the person quite yet, but it's okay, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. And if you start with the benefit of the doubt, it's gonna go way, way up, and it's gonna really help with that. Now clearly I'm just talking about presentations, but that can work for other KT plans and engagement strategies as well. That's where you come in and try and figure out where that is. Further questions, please ask away. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about how adult learners learn, what you can do to engage with that, different strategies. So this is a little bit more of the practical aspect of the presentation. There's three main ways, and people will hear this as SPARK: visual, auditory, kinesthetic. There's an R, I think it's reading. I can't remember, but it falls within the thing. So the main three categories are the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. There's three different types of learning, but learners are not necessarily one thing. I want you to think about how you like to learn the best. Do you like to read or look at flowcharts or look at infographics? Would you prefer to listen to a podcast or sit back and listen to somebody present something? Or would you rather dive right in and do some problem solving, take a look at a case study, figure out what's going on, and then learn from it that way? Some people like to read, some people like a more passive way, some people like to jump in, and so those are where these three different types of learning come in. Now, They're not always applicable in all situations, and that's okay. So if you have, So if you have like a learning material that's not going to fit within one of these categories, that's okay. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but just remember that these categories are fluid and they're not three separate things that can only fit into one box. And our learners only fit into one of these three boxes. Let's jump in. Visual learners. Visual learners learn by seeing. Okay, so they highlight keywords whenever they are taking notes. They use color and symbols to identify key concepts and ideas. Graphs, charts, diagrams, infographics are all really enthralling to visual learners, and they can gain a lot of information out of that, as opposed to reading long paragraphs. Things like mind maps, where you use arrows, circles, boxes to point out key terms, show how they're related. Often visual learners will have extremely detailed notes and look somewhat artistic. And they find great learning and can really integrate with the material that way. Pictures, sketches, so if you're sitting here listening to me and drawing as you're listening, you may be a visual learner instead of an auditory learner. Okay? The key here is to present information in a visually stimulating manner, not having long paragraphs, not a death by PowerPoint. I'm losing marks already because this presentation is death by PowerPoint. So I do apologize about that, but you'll see why I've done that in a minute. Minimizing visual distractions in the learning environment is also extremely helpful. So if you're in a cluttered environment for visual learners, that can be a problem. If there's bright lights that cast really weird shadows, that can be a distraction as well. So you may want to consider that if you are presenting or if you are doing, like creating an infographic, you don't want it to be unnecessarily cluttered, just to make sure that you have the attention for the visual learner at the important material. Auditory learners, they learn by hearing. So projecting your voice and speaking clearly if you're making presentations is always really important. Removing auditory distractions, huge. Music with lyrics, that'll take away from the auditory learners. A loud fan, that's always huge. Traffic, open windows, that sort of stuff if you're in a teaching situation or a group situation. If you're doing recording, think about the background noise. Is there clicking going on? Some people, when they're doing recordings, will also be on their laptops and like typing or moving their mouse around or clicking around, and that can get picked up by the mic. So being aware of like those behaviors, where if you don't have somebody in front of you, you can still be creating unnecessary noise or distractions. Something that's really effective, rhymes and jingles. Think about the last time that you got one of those earworms in your head. Probably from an advertisement. I can think of 5 or 6 different ads that go through my head on a regular basis. And the rhymes and jingles that are used in ads or used for learning can be really effective for engaging with the material, for getting people to learn it and getting people to remember that. So it's a very simple thing that can go a very, very long way. Allowing an opportunity to rehearse or repeat information back is always a good thing. Reading instructions aloud, creating verbal descriptions of diagrams and illustrations. This one is huge, especially if you're doing anything where you're not directly talking to somebody. If there is a little audio file with a verbal description of the diagram, one, it's going to help with accessibility, and two, it's going to help with those auditory learners to be able to engage with the material. Third category, kinesthetic learners. These guys learn by doing. Think gym class. You have to learn sport by actually doing the sport. So what does that look like in non-phys class situations? Questions and participation in discussion. The more discussion you have, you're actually engaging people. They're bringing up their own opinions. That's going to really help. Encouraging movement, standing, sitting, walking around. If you're uncomfortable, get up and move. It's totally fine, right? Using hands and body language when explaining concepts, especially like the 1, 2, 3 concepts. that can help engage kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners will often move or fidget in their seats as well, and that's completely fine, but having body language, if you're talking to somebody, can also engage that aspect of them. Give scenarios or case studies to solve. Instead of handing them information, be like, here, jump in, go, figure it out, and then we'll talk about it. And that really helps. Interactive activities or demonstrations. And then if you are doing long training, if it's going to be hours and hours and hours, have some sort of fidget or stress ball type cleaners are amazing. Just to have, they're $1, the dollars worth for like $1 million, throw them on the table, people will twist them, play with them, and it actually helps with concentration, and it's something really, really simple that you can just have available for people to use if you're doing long training situations. So, key takeaway from this is, where possible, use strategies for all types of learners. You don't really know, looking at somebody, unless you're going to give them like the VARC survey to do, what type of learners they are. So if you can use multiple strategies for all types of learners, you're going to engage with the most people, really, the top of. I want to kind of solidify this with an example that I think could resonate with you guys quite well. Infographics. How many people here online, I'm not going to see your hands, but you can raise them too. How many people here have made an infographic or seen an infographic or interacted with one at work? Yeah, most people, okay? How many people have had an auditory component with that? Was there an audio file or maybe a link to a podcast that explains the same topic at hand? Did that go along with it? So infographic, visual, podcast, auditory. Is there a way to demonstrate the skill also at that end of the infographic? Is there a link to a case study, or is there a riddle to figure out, or is there something to do physically with that information added? If you have that, it's a lot of extra work, but you're engaging with 3 different types of learners, and you're going to affect more people. And that's what we want to do here, okay? Now, if you've done any research on learning types, you will see that's a little bit controversial. People say that, you know, it's kind of BS and like making sure that you have your learning for learning types isn't going to affect things. And there is a little bit of a controversy there. And I do want to address that a little bit, and it's an interesting thing. So basically, I want you to think about, I'm going to take you back to the classroom. Think about math class. When you're learning how to do algebra, you have to practice. You have to learn the equation, you have to plug in the numbers, there's steps you have to follow, and you have to practice, 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 practice. You're not going to effectively learn algebra by drawing pictures. You're not going to effectively learn algebra through interpretive dance. Right? So when you're just thinking about what kind of KT plans you are making, what kind of learning you want to have done, there are going to be more effective categories to work it within and less effective categories to work in. So you don't have to always have all 3 things, all 3 visual, auditory, kinesthetic things in all of your learning situations or your KT plans. But you do want to, where possible and where relevant, use multiple strategies so that you can engage multiple learners. And that's the key there, is you want to engage with people, so using multiple strategies is the important thing. Okay? All right. Last thing I want to talk about here when we're talking about learners is intellectual capacity. So there's 3. And we all have these 3 capacities, but the way that they show up with you could be different. You could be higher on one, much lower on the other, that sort of thing. So the 3 are cognitive, affective, and physiological capacities. Cognitive, think, memorization, okay? There's variations in that. How easily do you memorize that? Can you read it once and memorize? Do you use jingles? Do you tend to memorize things or remember things in very specific detail? Can you go through your morning and tell me in detail what happened before you had a shower or after you had a shower? Who called you? What the temperature of the air was like in your house, that sort of stuff. Very detailed. Some people have very, very detailed memories. Some people, their cognitive abilities are more general. They tend to conflate similar things. So I generally do this every morning. This is kind of how it goes, but I know what my routine is. Or similar major historical events, they will group together to see the consistency. So there's a memory thing there. Cognitive people, or the cognitive area, is very analytic. They like to think about a situation or a concept, and they're really focused on the details, analyzing, right, using your brain. Some people, that's the main way that they learn. Other people, they just do it because they have to. Effective intellectual capacity is about being curious, being triggered by something that is novel or adventuresome, or wants to do something just because they find something very, very interesting. Some people are naturally very curious. I know someone in my life who is constantly on the internet looking up the most ridiculous things because it just kind of goes through his mind. And he's like, oh, I wonder how clouds work, or I wonder if there's more salt in the oceans now than there was 5 years ago, or what's the difference between coniferous and deciduous trees, and why do they both exist? I've had all of those conversations, and this person is a very curious, very effective person, and he often needs change to escape boredom. So that could be checking Kijiji. That could be checking your phone while you're in some sort of training, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not that they're not paying attention, it's that they need something to engage with that curiosity, to continue engaging with the material. Physiological, this is where I am. Health-related behavior, affected by time of day, hunger, sleep, the learning environment, caffeine levels, anything to do with my physiological being. If something's off, I'm having a bad day. I'm not going to learn if I haven't been caffeinated, if I haven't had breakfast, if I haven't been in a nice warm environment where I can really focus. And some people, that's really important. Other people are like, whatever, I'll have breakfast whenever I'm hungry at 2 p.m., that sort of stuff. So think about yourself. Think about where you fall in these, and are you the same as me, or are you different than me? People who you're going to be interacting with, people who you're designing KT plans, these things are going to affect them differently. Some people are going to be very positive. Some people are going to be very effective. Some people are going to be very physiological. Some people could be very balanced or not even know. And the hard part is when you're thinking about that target audience and who you're going to be engaging with, you don't really know. Looking around the room, I have no idea. So it's important to, like, wherever you can, control these things to make sure that everything is as easy as possible for everybody. So, like, for example, if you can have a meeting in the middle of the day instead of early, or at the end of the day, that could be a really good thing. If you know that you are talking to people who are very analytic, being able to talk about those details and really dive in can be very helpful for engaging with people as well. Okay, importance to KT. Overall, the way a person learns is extremely varied, so having an awareness of this is important when designing your KT plan. That's my whole goal today. I just want you to be aware of all of it. I'm aware that this is a lot of stuff that I'm throwing at you, but the goal here is to be like, okay, who is my target audience? How are there different ways that they learn? Everybody does learn differently. How am I going to plan my KT so that I can engage with people who are different learners, okay? Thinking about what you can control, what you can't control when you're making your KT plan can really inform the steps that you take. Thinking about how you can incorporate visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning principles is also very helpful. Thinking about if the learning styles or the cognitive, affective, physiological abilities can be leveraged to create new and exciting learning opportunities. And thinking about the environment. Is this prolonged training? Is it happening in a specific environment that you can control or influence? Or are you out on the street talking to people where you can't influence the environment? And then, is that important? Is it not important? Trying to think of an example here about how I would do this. So an example where I could pull all of this in is by storytelling. If I have people who are curious, if I have people who are not really super into the details or who are not really engaging with me, storytelling can go a long way. Think back to some of the speeches you've seen or other learning that you've had, and it often will start with a story. You create a situation, you create suspense, you give the details for the cognitive people. You may have an image in the background for your visual learners, and by telling the story, you're connecting with people, you're drawing them in, and you're engaging with a whole bunch of different types of learners in a whole bunch of different ways in an interesting and novel way so that they can engage with the material. That's one strategy that can work really, really well. Okay, so I've been flying through these. Are there questions so far, or we're doing okay? Okay, so we've talked about general strategies. We've talked about who the adult learner is. The next thing I want to talk about is learning objectives. Learning objectives in the education world is where we start. If we're planning a lesson, if we're planning a course, we need to know what objectives we're going to hit and how we're going to do that. They're what we measure learning on. They're what informs our evaluations, our activities, our lessons, everything. And learning objectives are super, super important in effective learning because they give you that roadmap, okay? Learning objectives are clearly defined statements that define the outcomes or goals of a curriculum, course, or activity in terms of a demonstratable skill that can be performed as a result of the learning. Math class. You will know how to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We will know this because you can actually do it. So it's a testable skill. We're not talking about you can do math. Like it's a very specific skill. Okay? Learning objectives are action-based. They always start with a verb. Okay? They provide the framework for designing your entire learning situation, and they inform your topics, activities, and evaluations, just like I said. The way to create learning objectives is Bloom's Taxonomy. It's one of the most widespread ones, or widespread frameworks that work really, really well in assessing what kind of learning you want to have and to create those learning objectives. So there's a pyramid here. It starts with remembering. That's the base. That's the most important. That's basic knowledge, okay? So the student, can they recall or remember the information? Can they define, duplicate, list, memorize, recall, repeat, reproduce, or state? Okay? So today, can you identify or list the 3 types of learners? Okay, that's an easy learning objective. From remembering, we go up to understanding, a little bit harder. Can the student explain ideas or concepts? They would be able to classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, translate, or paraphrase. So remembering, understanding. That's where this whole presentation is hanging out today. The goal, the focus of this is for you to remember a couple of things from adult ed, understand how they work so that you can maybe apply them to your own learning. I'm not going to be giving you an activity where you actually apply, so that's why I'm focused on these 2 within this presentation. Moving moving up, applying. Can that student use the information in a new way? This is probably where most of your TT is going to start, where you're seeing like skills being shown in the real world. So you will need to have understanding and remembering as the base. So using that information in a new way. Can you choose, demonstrate, dramatize, employ, illustrate, interpret, operate, sketch, solve, use, or write? Okay? From applying, then the next step is analyzing. So you can apply the information. Next step, can you make judgments about it? Can you analyze it? Can you distinguish between the different parts? Okay? So comparing and contrasting, criticizing, examining, experimenting, questioning, testing knowledge. Okay? Evaluating. Can you make a stand or justify a perspective or have a decision made about the learning? So again, a higher level, evaluating information, the student might appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, and evaluate. And then the height of the taxonomy is creating. Can you take the information that you have learned, analyze it, break it down, and build it into something new, create something new, construct something, design something, formulate something, write something new based on the knowledge that you've had. So each of these things builds on the previous level. You don't have to use every single thing in every single KT plan, but it's important to know that you can't get to evaluating if there is no understanding. So when you're creating learning objectives and you're thinking about what you want to do, you have to think about what skills you want your audience to be able to do at the end. Do you want them to be able to just list some facts back at you? Awesome. We're talking about remembering. Do you want them to apply what they learned to their lives? Yes. Okay, so that's applying, maybe some analyzing. So when you're creating learning objectives, you'd be talking about demonstrating or interpreting this. So an example would be me having a learning objective here in that analyzing, applying level would be like create, oh no, that's actually creating. Identify learning objectives from one of your previous KT plans. So I'd have you tell me one of the learning objectives from your previous KT plan and how it fits or how it creates into a learning objective. To go further, I could be like, okay, now I want you to think of the situation and create some learning objectives. We don't have time for that today. I'd love to do that, but we don't have time to get that through today. Any questions so far about this? No? Yeah, go for it.
So if your goal is to get your students to analyze or whatever, do you need to sort of get them to, do you need to have them practice doing that in your activity, or can you provide all of the information and sort of get them, move them up to the step and just sort of assume that with that knowledge, with that bank of information you provided, they should be able to analyze? Like, I'm assuming that practice would need you to include that.
So if I understand your question, what you're asking is if you want to focus on evaluating or analyzing in your KT plan, do you also have to provide the understanding and remembering within that same plan?
No, that I know you would have to do.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess maybe as immediate, if you're hoping for students to be able to use that knowledge and apply it to something, should you have a KT activity where they actually practice applying that knowledge? Or can you assume that if they remember and understand that you've provided the context for them to be able to apply on their own, that is that a stretch to sort of think that they'll apply on their own, and that is really fine, or should you always have them practice up to that learning objective that you're hoping?
Best practice is going to be have them practice, right? So like, again, this presentation is -1 for me because I'm not having you actually practice making learning objectives or do anything. So right now, this is not good for, like, my goal is not to apply, my goal is just to have you do that. So if your goal is to have them apply it in real life situations, yes, give them an activity that makes them practice applying it. What that looks like can be different depending on where the level of your learner is. So thinking about like what their experiences are is really important. But the whole point of getting them to practice is to create a safe environment. So if they do fail, it's okay. And you're right there to be like, oh, well, what about this? This is how you can be successful. Let's practice again so that they don't have to, like, high stakes, just do it in their real life. So, yes, always, if possible, give them practice.
Sort of a comment that I was going to say that I feel like that's one of our pretty major weaknesses in what we do in CT is that we're really good at remembering and understanding, and we think that people can apply it. So getting back to what you said earlier about the 3 different kinds of learners, in some situations that I have terrible patience with, so I can remember and understand, but if I don't say things like, you mean that thing with my hand, it doesn't matter how many times people tell me, I cannot apply, I just cannot think of it. So it's kind of like, it's interesting to think about how to apply and also intersect with those other kind of
Yeah.
Also to add on to that, I have to wonder sometimes if that's just a matter of time and how that's built in as well. Like you can only do so much within a 1 hour time slot in the seminar to look over the impact of something versus if it's a full course. And your ability to apply that is going to be so much more rich and the far more opportunities for that. So I think timing is entirely a factor.
Oh yeah, 100%. Timing is all of it, and that's why I'm not making you do anything right now, right? Like I've got 45 minutes, like what am I going to do? But so like when you're in those situations, especially in KT, because the key here is the application. Like it's not necessarily the remembering and the knowledge. So looking at how you can do that. So strategies like a case study. Walking in here, I could have walked in and been like, here, let's look at this. What went well? What didn't go well? What are we doing? It's a very backwards way to think about how to do it. It's a very scary thing because as a facilitator, you got to know your stuff in case things go sideways quick. But you can walk in, if you know your audience has that basic knowledge, you can walk in and spring a case study right on them and have them apply. Some people actually really love learning by failing. Or have a puzzle, like have a problem and present a problem at the very beginning of your meeting, right? This is the problem, what should we do? And if you have it in a storytell way where it's like kind of fictionalized, then people will start thinking in creative ways. And then you can start working within that. It's a little bit harder to do if you're not used to it, and it is scarier to do as a facilitator, but it is something that if you're really focused on the applying, like think about what your learning objective is. So my job here is I want to judge something. So I'm going to create a situation where there's a clear right and wrong answer, but it's kind of controversial, and we're going to get people to apply what they know and give me judgment. And then based on their initial judgments, then I might talk about something or some sort of learning that's important or bring up something that I want to like instill and then have them judge again. So it's kind of thinking outside the box that way, and that can really help with that time frame. Sometimes it's just not possible, so that's okay, but having clear learning objectives, if you know all of your learning objectives are up here, if they're like formulate, write, support, you're going to spend a lot of your time designing your material around that as opposed to basic knowledge. That also requires you knowing who your target audience is, going back to that. Awesome questions, guys. Love it. Any other questions? Okay, so Blue Taxonomy, this is super, super helpful for thinking about learning objectives, thinking about what kind of things you want to do and how you can effectively do that, and then you can build strategies off of that. This next one, I'm going to magnify, is a super cool resource, and Travis is going to post this somewhere. Is this not working?
Is it zooming in on that side or no?
It's supposed to be.
You gotta click. Right there?
Yeah, right there. I see. Thank you. So this is a really awesome resource for helping you with that. So if you read through this, so this is your remember, understand, again, the basics. So what we have on this first reading is the action words for your learning objectives. Do you want them to interpret, identify, report? You can't really see it, I apologize. You'll get a copy of it, I promise. And then the next reading is going to give you different activities. So for example, if you want people to report, you could use blogging. Okay, there's an activity. If you want them to, I don't know, classify, use some sort of categorizing. And this has a whole bunch of like apps or social media platforms or areas where you can use, like that would be effective for using that. So that's the remember, understand. There's one for the apply, the analyze. There we go. So same sort of thing here is like you can comprehend, you can do mind mapping, listing, searching, and then you have all of these different things. There's like a writing spot, there's a quiz, you're a lizard, so that must be a quiz thing. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can use that can help you create these activities. So this is a really awesome resource, and we can get that to you after as well to take a look at that. So when you're thinking about where in your learning objectives you want to do, creating those activities is the next step, and that can be a helpful map through there. Okay.
You have one that doesn't use like technology, it's more like hands-on or like a lot of visual learners that I would be in contact with might not.
Technology there?
Yeah, they're like.
Okay, I can definitely get you resources for that, and I'm thinking off the top of my head where it is, but let me know, and afterwards, then I'll definitely be able to get you, like, here are some hands-on things that don't rely on any sort of technology.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, some people might not have the internet or on the internet, so they use apps while reading.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and that's knowing your target audience, right? So that's perfect, and there are tons of different hands-on things, like even simple things like if you want them to apply a skill, like you could have them have just like written instructions on a piece of paper for them to do like scavenger hunt or something like that, and that can do that. But yeah, I'll definitely get you some resources that are not based on technology. Okay. The criteria for learning objectives. So whenever you're creating your learning objectives, you're thinking about your PDG plan, what the person wants, or what you want your target audience to learn in this. You need to think about these things. Number one, it needs to be specific. It has to be super, super clear. It needs to be skill or competency based, and it needs to start with an action word. Define, explain, apply, analyze, something they're doing, okay? Take into consideration Bloom's taxonomy, and then you can also address the reluctant or naive learner with it. So something could be like, so if you have a naive learner who doesn't even know if they need to learn something, maybe you just want them to be able to identify 3 things that will make it better. To make it better is not specific, but you can fill that blank in for your specific plan, right? Okay. So, summary, which is also a really nice example of a whole bunch of learning objectives. So, today what we did is we examined the characteristics of adult learners. Okay, we know they're goal-oriented, they have pride, they want to be respected, they have a wealth of experience that you can draw on. That could be super helpful, or it could be a barrier. Okay? We identified how adults learn by exploring the 3 learning types and learning styles. We talked about how this information can be applied to your PDG plans and practice. It's on you now to go and actually apply that. Those you want help or have questions, please contact me because I will help you. Okay? We discussed learning objectives, what they are, and we interpreted Bloom's taxonomy. No, we didn't create sample learning objectives. I lied on that one. But we did look at the Bloom's taxonomy for how you could create effective learning objectives. All right. And that's it. So thank you. I will take all sorts of questions and comments, and you can always contact me afterwards as well if something pops up. Questions? Awkward silence?
More of a comment. I was just thinking how is, how the experience of elders who really act as a barrier, because we've all run into the situation where anecdotes that people have in their own life trumps any sort of evidence that we're trying to give them. So we'll say like, hey, smoking tobacco, this is my grandma smoked a pack a day and lived for like 150. So nuts, your evidence, But yeah, so it's gives you insight into why that might be, and we have to try to think of ways to sort of overcome, in a sense, people's own experience, which I think is the most challenging thing about K2.
People want to know that their experience isn't wrong. As soon as you tell them their experience is wrong, they're like, yeah, I'm out. So if you can address their experience, be like, yeah, that's valid. That did happen. But also, what if? Or also this. Like, it's cool that that happened. Hopefully that will also happen for you, and you can live to 150 while you're smoking. But in case, like, we do see this happening too, have you thought about this? And that could be a really great way to open that conversation. Like, talking about people's experiences and addressing them and being like, yeah, those are valid experiences, go a huge way in breaking down those barriers.
We've got a question from Kate, and we've already answered part of it, but she asked, what about skeptical or confrontational adult learners? Any tips for consideration? So maybe we've spoken to skeptical or confrontational.
Yeah, confrontational ones are always hard because they make my blood boil. It happens. It happens in high school too. It happens to me all the time. And the kids would make fun of me because they'd be like, Miss, your face is getting more red and more red and more red. And I'm like, yeah, it's just hot in here. I drank a lot of coffee. But yeah, it is a thing, especially for people who are like, I don't want to learn this. I need force. Like, who the heck are you to deal with it? And I think that comes down to pride, really. And people who are confrontational, they want to show that, one, they know what they're talking about. They're usually proud of where they are in their career or what their stance is, and they will never admit it, but they might be afraid that you might tell them in this training that they're wrong and what they're doing is wrong, or they're bad at their job. So the easiest thing to do in those situations is just to really de-escalate. So I always take this strategy of like, okay, like, I see that you don't want to learn about this, but I know you're good at your job, and like that's not the question here, but maybe something can be applicable, or and like kind of like explain it that way when I'm clarifying the expectations. And then usually what happens is like you clarify the expectations, and then they sit in the back, and then they have like all these side comments about how like in their experience that's not how it works, in the real world that's not how it works. So finding a way to put that into spin that into a positive thing. So looking for examples. So I want examples from your workplace of where this might not work or where this might be tough, so that we can find out ways to fix that. That guy in the back is going to give you a whole list to work on, right? And so that can really help. So trying to take their perspective and be twist it into something that can be actually helpful. It's a tough thing to do, but asking directed questions where they can give examples and then you can build off of that. Or asking questions where they can like fostering discussion. So like, okay, great, you believe that. Does anybody else have other experiences where it has worked? Does anybody, and then the opposite. So if somebody's talking about something later on where something has worked well, does anybody have experiences where it may not have worked well? And then you can bring that person back in. Hopefully that'll work. Sometimes you just have to be like, listen. But that's last resort. Last resort.
I have another one for this question. Sarah asked whether the pedagogy wheel that you showed is informed by evidence that those strategies work towards those outcomes, or if it's a menu of options to try and something that should be evaluated.
It's a menu of options for sure. There is a link where they're like these things do work. But if you're looking for like this specific platform does this exact thing. No, there's not going to be the evidence there. It's more like these are options for you to try. The key is the words, right? So like the action-based words and then the activity-based, that part is evidence-based on the Bloom's taxonomy. Good question.
Sorry, we also just have logistical. Where was that recording posted? How can people get that later?
Yeah, so the recording will be posted on the KIPL and YouTube account. If you go to the website that I posted earlier, or if you just search, Google search KIPLN, which is for Knowledge and Practice Learning Network, you'll see there in the resources that there's a link to the YouTube channel, and so it'll be posted there.
Cool.
Yeah. Booming voice.
Any final questions?
I guess what would be a way to engage learners if you're not able to be face-to-face with them, where you're just kind of giving them information, hope somebody picks it up, and like what would be?
You need a hook. Okay, so in teaching we call it hooks, and it's something that just catches your eye. So like a riddle is a hook, or an image. I wanted to have a wonderful little image of 2 peas in a pod to like presented to walk in, because I think KT and adult ed do have a lot of crossover, but then I saw logistically it couldn't happen. But that could have been a really good hook, because you would walk in and like, why is there peas on the screen, right? And then you automatically get thinking. So if you look up like hooks, like education hooks, they'll give you a whole bunch of strategies, but just something to catch the eye. So a riddle, if you're handing out information, like a really cool picture can also be, like that's what we use. Auditory, like there's so many different options, but if you're handing stuff out, it's tough. Colors, like the type of paper, it's like if you have it folded into something weird, like, so anything to kind of like, that's different will work as a hook, and then that can really help. Depends on the target audience as well.
Yeah, sometimes it's like Zoomers, and then sometimes it's farmer numbers that were so it'd be different for each, but
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't really know tons. Like, do you do like anything like? Give me an example of like a situation.
Oh, like most of my knowledge transfer for our members is through our magazines. I can't really change that too much because I'm getting a t-shirt, but I'm thinking also of like we have handouts or
Yeah.
and stuff.
Could you like add something like this is going to be 100% like general, but like could you add like a grain of like a stalk of wheat and like glue that onto a piece of paper? So like there's something like tactile there, or like I don't know. You know, like having something there, like the smallest things can help, because people will be like, oh, it's not just a flyer. And then they might see something, or like have like one big word that, yeah. It's tough, but if you can give me a very specific thing, then I can help you.
Yeah, I don't have anything
Yeah.
right now.
Whatever you do. Aaron?
No.
Never mind. I love it. Anything else?
Good. I'd like to thank Chrissy for being here. We've all learned a lot. Thanks.